Yesterday, obviously, we did an episode, recorded, posted, went off to pick up my daughter from school. Then some big news dropped in regards to the Cleveland Browns. Paul Depodesta agreed to go run the Colorado Rockies, ending almost a full 10-year relationship with the Cleveland Browns. We're going to have some thoughts on that, and obviously some final thoughts as Cleveland Browns travel to New Jersey to play the New York Jets on Sunday. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate each and every one of you who come on out to the OBR every single day for the best Cleveland Browns coverage there is, whether it is the written content over at the OBR.com. While you are there, I highly suggest you look into picking up the Insider package, Insider forums, Ask the Insiders, and of course, your subscription will bundle with a subscription to Paramount Plus. For everybody that continues to support us here daily, nightly on the OBR streaming network, again, we could not be more thankful for you all coming out. And please, if you haven't by now, or you know some friends who have it, please make sure you are subscribed to the OBR on YouTube, and of course, the OBR over on Twitch. We will get to the Week 10 matchup. Cleveland Browns traveling to New Jersey face the New York Jets. But like I said in the cold opening, recorded yesterday, put it up, basically grabbed my keys, had about a 3-hour would-be drive. That was a 4-hour drive with traffic. Head on down, pick my daughter up from school, bring her home for the weekend. In that time, the rumors started swirling that the Colorado Rockies were hot in pursuit and were very close to nailing down having Paul Depodesta come lead the Colorado Rockies front office. As quickly as it came out, is as quickly it was finalized, and Paul Depodesta was in fact on his way to the Colorado Rockies. I assume that probably means he might actually have to go to work every day and not stay home in San Diego. From the Cleveland Browns, we want to thank Paul for his contributions to the Cleveland Browns over the past 9.5 seasons. Paul's humble and egoless approach encouraged a culture of teamwork and collaboration. He helped modernize our research and analytics departments, and his broad background in professional sports brought a different perspective to our organization. We appreciate his valued role he played in our organization as a member of our leadership team and wish him all the best in his return to Major League Baseball with the Colorado Rockies. Paul DePodesta and his time with the Cleveland Browns is probably one of the wilder stories that could be taken and turned into maybe yet another movie, right? Moneyball. Because Paul DePodesta, for a guy who barely, barely ever met with the media, I mean, it felt like it was what, maybe every 3 years, if that, and was very, very seldom seen anywhere around the Cleveland Browns. Got to keep in mind, Paul DePodesta was doing his work from his home in San Diego, California. But yet, so many Browns fans absolutely despised him. And for the most part, I think all of us truly don't understand what exactly Paul DePodesta's role was and just what exactly the Haslam family was paying him for. Jimmy was a businessman. Jimmy knew numbers, beliefs, theories, how to run his business. When Jimmy got into the world of professional sports, he was looking for somebody to integrate him into the sports world and show him, I guess, apply his beliefs into professional sports. Numbers, bottom lines, we don't gamble on this, we do gamble on that, etc., etc. So, how people were always so upset with a guy like Paul Depodesta was always the most interesting thing. There are things, certainly, that the way the Browns have been run for a good time now come from beliefs and analytics. And Paul Depodesta was never the head of analytics. So anybody believes that, that is just not the case. Does Paul embrace analytics? Did Paul Depodesta, use them as a practice? Absolutely. But Paul Depodesta's, belief beliefs put through an analytic approach don't necessarily just scream analytics. Some of it just, makes the most sense. Drafting younger players. If you were somebody who drives for your job and has a large commute, do you go to the dealership and buy a Ford F-150? Or you go to the dealership and look to buy something like a Nissan, Toyota, something that more is analytically fit to your driving needs? Gambling on younger talent is usually going to outweigh older talent. Buying a more economical driving car just makes more sense if that's what you have to do. I think that's why, you know, and I get it if you believe that Paul DePodesta and his theories and beliefs were issues for the Browns. I understand that. But Paul DePodesta was not necessarily drafting players, was not signing free agents, was certainly not making trades. Paul DePodesta's word was not always taken like it was the Bible, like it was fact, and there was no other difference. If you want an example, the Deshaun Watson trade. There is no way in the world the work Paul DePodesta did in trying to put together this strategy on how to long-term run what would have hopefully been a successful franchise. There is no way in the world trading three first-round picks for a quarterback who hadn't played football in over a year would have ever been something that would have been high on Paul DePodesta's list. It's interesting that after 10 years now, he goes back to Major League Baseball. With Paul, and again, I mean, most of it's been an absolute mystery. We can all agree. I mean, we know his name, we know where he was, but I mean, like, you could have just never shown his face and basically just said Mr. X. And that essentially what, at times kind of felt like Paul DePodesta, who and what he was in regards to the Cleveland Browns. I got to reach out to a couple of people, and Paul was always a baseball guy. Loved the game. Was also a guy, a free thinker. A guy who likes to challenge himself. So when this opportunity came about with the Cleveland Browns, he certainly took it. I think many felt, almost a decade removed from Major League Baseball. That was it. We're not going to go back. But, obviously a situation arose for the Colorado Rockies, and it's going to be interesting because it's a tough place, as far as trying to field a consistent winner just as much as coming to the Cleveland Browns was. But I mean, if you're going to challenge yourself, which I heard and had people mention numerous times, I guess going from trying to put firm footings under the Cleveland Browns to trying to put firm footings under the Colorado Rockies. You like a challenge? Hell, that's a challenge. I think many try to pontificate what necessarily this means for the current general manager, head coach here for the Browns. It could mean something. It might not mean anything. Word is that the Haslams were not taken aback. It wasn't like this was, just an absolute out of nowhere scenario. Uh, the feeling is that Paul felt it ran its course. And in no way am I trying to make this sound disrespectful to Andrew Berry, but Andrew has been in the game an extremely long time. So I think for Andrew, it kind of became to the point of he's been in the game so long, certainly worked with multiple organizations, certainly was with Cleveland, went to Philadelphia, came back to Cleveland, obviously got, some positive work in Philadelphia, grew himself. But Andrew Berry, obviously, as a general manager, has his own thoughts now, has his own beliefs, has his own ways that he would like to run the organization. And not saying that there was any ill will between Andrew Berry and Paul Depodesta, but I think there came a point maybe where others learned the way the Haslams were trying to have Paul Depodesta run the organization. And after others had been in the organization numerous years, an extended amount of time, others learned the practices and the beliefs on how it was going to be run themselves, but it didn't always necessarily mean that applying those practices were always going to have every single person come to the same decision. Now, again, does this mean major changes coming? Does this mean there is a successor to Paul Depodesta coming? First off, there doesn't have to be a successor to Paul Depodesta. There doesn't. There could be. Does this mean anything for Barry and Stefanski? It could. I'm still on the belief of it's not going to mean anything. Browns still have 9 games to play. Look, it can look like an absolute SIJIT show, and that certainly could change things. It really could. But the continued belief and the continued word is that Jimmy Haslam believes that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are good. Certainly not without flaw. Jimmy Haslam is certainly aware of some situations that have transpired with this team over the last few years that have kind of left the team in the situation that it is in. And, there certainly, have been rumblings that, and they're not hiding from the fact that between Haslam, Berry, and Stefanski, they highly wish they had never done the Deshaun Watson trade, especially when you look right now at what this 2025 NFL draft class is doing for the Cleveland Browns. You look at this draft class, and it probably you want to kick yourself even harder because their premise on positional value, on prospects and what boxes they want checked, it looks like it was a glowing win here in the 2025 draft. But without a first round pick in 22, without a first round pick in 2023, without a first round pick in 2024, this team was lacking good players at premium positions. This is one of the reasons you look at this offensive line and it's as old as it is. It's one of the reasons you look at this wide receiver core and you realize that it's missing some things. You can kind of pencil in those could have been and should have been the picks. And maybe the Browns, yeah, maybe a blip in 21, but right back on the horse in 22, 23, 24, 25. So kind of going away from the plan that Jimmy Haslam and Paul Depodesta agreed on and turning it into a plan that would run a football organization. It certainly took a while, of course, but it should have hummed from 2020 on. 2021, obviously, Baker injured, that certainly. But they could have bounced right back on the horse in 2022. However, they did not, because they went away from the manifesto. They went away from what was the blueprint plan on how to hopefully run a successful NFL team for an elongated period of time. But it still cracks me up, it does, because people just absolutely hate him. Anytime there's something wrong with it, I ain't got a thing with Paul Depodesta. The guy who was in Cleveland, Ohio, maybe 2 to 3 times a year and basically never left an office in his home in San Diego. Yep. That's the guy that's sinking the battleship for the Cleveland Browns. Absolutely 100%. It still blows my stinking mind. It absolutely does. Appreciate you all for checking us out here. Browns 3D, OBR Streaming Network. Make sure you subscribe, of course, on YouTube and, of course, over on Twitch. Jets Sunday. Browns travel out there. Shedeur Sanders, second straight practice, healthy enough, will be your number 2 quarterback Sunday in New York. Ray Dillon doesn't have a bad first drive because it's all going to get nuts from there, right? Isaiah Bond is out with a foot injury. Didn't practice the entire week. 4 listed as questionable. Tight end Harold Fannin didn't practice on Thursday, came back to practice on Friday. Limited today, listed as questionable with a hamstring. Cornelius Lucas, limited, back, questionable. Carson Swessinger in practice today. Limited. Upgraded from a did not practice. Questionable. Cedric Tillman, full practice today, listed as questionable. All intents and signs are that Cedric Tillman will return to his starting role. So, with Bond out, Tillman back in, a Cleveland Browns wide receiver core on Sunday for the New York Jets. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Malachi Corley, Jamari Thrash, Gage Lavardane. You take Bond out of that mix, you get Tillman back in as a starter. Look, it ain't a world-beating wide receiver room. I ain't claiming it is, all right? But to be completely honest with you, Cedric Tillman was probably playing your best wide receiver ball this season to this point until he got hurt. Bond, I thought, was growing. But once Joe Flacco was no longer the starter and Dylan Gabriel was inserted and the passing game became a lot more short route, the flaws that folks felt Isaiah Bond had during the draft process just got exasperated. Look, he's fast. He can get open down the field. He's never going to be. The fact that he was a starter here is an absolute joke. There was never even anything close to starter level production in college. So to think that he was ever going to throw into that here, I'm sorry, was foolish. Getting Tillman back is big. Pretty sure he's leading the wide receivers to touchdown catches. He's probably the only one that has one. How about that? Cedric Tillman is the only wide receiver on the Cleveland Browns through 8 games that has a touchdown reception, and he has 2 of them. This wide receiver crew will get to face a now New York Jets secondary that no longer possesses Sauce Gardner. This Cleveland Browns running attack will now get to face a New York Jets defensive line that no longer has Quinnen Williams. His brother Quincy is now a reserve for the New York Jets. I don't know what to make of the Jets. And I really thought the Aaron Glenn hire was a good thing. Aaron Glenn was a really good player. A lot of heart, toughness. He's been spoken about and has been well respected in his efforts as an assistant coach leading up to getting this New York Jet job. And he certainly holds that Jet franchise, in high regard, Aaron Glenn. And there were some good years for Aaron Glenn when he was with the Jets. He was part of those Bill Parcells teams. Did the Jets think they were remotely going to be able to compete this year? They did. Unlike the Browns didn't think they were going to be able to compete this year. They thought they'd be able to, be better than they were last year. And I still think they can beat that 3-14. Christ, they better beat that 3-14. But I think the Jets were hoping that they could find something in Justin Fields or get Justin Fields to a level that his 2 previous stops in the NFL did not. And, Fields missed some time, had a monster game against, the Cincinnati Bengals. And, I don't know what Aaron Glenn is still doing to this point, playing this cat and mouse crap about who's going to be a starting quarterback on Sunday. If it's Tyrod Taylor, just say it. If it's Justin Fields, just say it. You're going against one of the better defenses in the entire NFL. I don't think the Browns are sitting around and Jim Schwartz sitting there. Well, I've got game plan A, and game plan B. It all depends. If it's Taylor, I'm right. Jim Schwartz is Jim Schwartz. He's just going to do what he does. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things he's going to put in, and he changes in, week out, a few things in regards to the opponent the Browns are going to play. Jim Schwartz's belief each and every week is my defense is better than your offense. Pretty much. And like I said yesterday, keep in mind, whatever quarterback, especially if it's Fields, last time he faced Justin Fields, he had 4.5 sacks. Coming off a 5-sack game. Imagine a player having 9.5 sacks in back-to-back games. Hot damn. Carson Swessinger. 2 weeks ago, ankle injury in New England. Thought right after was not good, walking boot, IR. A couple days later, maybe not as bad, and we might avoid IR. Now here we are, I guess, some 12, 13 days after the fact, and, Carson Swessinger competed in practice today in a limited capacity. Kind of gives me J.C. Treader vibes. That was 2018 against the Chargers. J.C. Treader got hurt. Left field in walking boot. People thought he was going to be out for a while. Got to practice on Friday. Went through a walkthrough and played on Sunday. And proceeded to do pretty much the same routine for the rest of the season. Carson Schlesinger, I mean, you want to talk about consistently just winning over your fan base. Everything he says, this fan base loves and adores, and they should. Everything he does on the field, this fan base absolutely loves and adores, and we all should. Fantastic player. But now you get possibly this type of gutty performance where he might not miss a game. Granted, there was a bye, diagnosed with a high ankle sprain, and he could be out there 2 weeks to the day of suffering said high ankle sprain. There'll be a lot of 4-9 jerseys running around Cleveland, Ohio. I can tell you all that right now. This stuff keeps up. I remember talking with Joe Schobert. And I guess that was the 2018 season as well. Joe was dinged up that year. And Joe was talking about, and we kind of shifted the conversation of, in years past, players that were on the fringe of IR would just opt out, take the IR and call it a year. And Joe said, that those conversations were being had about, whether or not, and he absolutely just shut him down, dismissed him straight away. Like, there's no shot in hell this is going to happen. I will be out there as soon as I possibly can. And it becomes a culture thing. And like what Schlesinger is doing here, just the fact he made it to practice today and whether or not he actually even plays on Sunday is kind of setting the tone of the way things should be. You can get out there, you get your ass out there and you play. And I think a guy like Carson Schlesinger, and I'm going to be honest with you, I mean, we're talking about a guy that most likely should have a C on his chest next year. This is Captain Stife. This is Captain-like mentality. And you hope that it, especially with all the youngness on this roster and so much age that's going to be moved on from this roster at the end of this 2025 season, that, Carson Schlesinger is most likely going to be a culture setter, a guy who demands the way that this organization carries himself as players, as men. It's great to see. The Browns should absolutely just boat race the Jets on Sunday. There could be some weather. It's going to be in the mid to low 60s. So, I mean, you can't ask for better weather in New Jersey on the second Sunday in November. It doesn't matter who starts at quarterback for the Jets. I will say that Breece Hall can be a pain at times. We've certainly seen that in the past. Garrett Wilson has all the talent in the world, but it's been the same problem for him in New York the entirety of his career there. Just does not have a consistent enough quarterback to get him the ball regularly the way he needs it. The Browns should be good to go. Both teams coming off a bye. The Browns should be fresh, ready to rock. New play caller. Hopefully we get to see some things that we haven't seen yet to this point. And yes, I am talking to you, Tommy Reese. I would like to see something I haven't seen yet. But there is part of me certainly that's scared because, nobody can Browns like the Browns. However, I think the Cleveland Browns walk into MetLife Stadium on Sunday against the New York Jets. And the Cleveland Browns beat the New York Jets 30-13. I think the offense gets going. The passing game gets going. Quinshawn has his best day of his career. and we get some fireworks and some excitement from the Cleveland Browns defense. I am Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you for taking your time for the OBR, whether it's the written content over at theobr.com. Don't hesitate. You need the insider package in your life. And for everybody who comes out to the OBR.com nightly, thank you. As always, if you are not subscribed, go ahead and make sure you do so. If you have friends who are not subscribed, go ahead and do that for them as well. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to you all Sunday, 5 o'clock sharp.